نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم ولكن رسول الله وخاتم النبيين وكان الله بكل شيء عليما بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعني وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين واستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح يا فتاح يا فتاح صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it's a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given me and you the ability and tawfiq to participate in this gathering, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering a source of guidance for all of us, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering one of the means of our entry into Jannah. We have started a new chapter of our Seerah series. In this chapter we are going to discuss only two incidents that happened before Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually became the Prophet. One of these incidents is the marriage of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, and the second incident is the rebuilding of the Kaaba. In our last session we actually discussed how Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was introduced to Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha. Very few people know that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam worked for the sister of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha as a shepherd. And then Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha's sister told Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha about the character and the nobility and about the honesty of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the narrator of this hadith, the narrator of this report, he said that this was the first time when Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha heard about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in such a manner. And it just so happened that in the same year, towards the end of the year, Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha's caravans were going to Syria, and she needed someone to take charge of her caravans. Now what actually happened in those days, during those days, is that every time she would choose a person, now that person, because he's not related to Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, and he's not looking after the best interest of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, he would take the charge of the caravans of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, but when he would come back, he would lie, he would cheat, he would not give the full account to Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, and as a result she would not get the money that she deserved. Even though alhamdulillah she maintained her dignity in the society, she maintained a good amount of wealth in the society, but still she was not getting the amount of wealth or the amount of money that she deserved. So this time she thought, why not I choose this young man, Muhammad? He was only 24 years old at that time. She said, why don't I choose this young man? Because of his honesty. Even though he was inexperienced in terms of his business skills, he was only a shepherd, he was not a businessman, and he was very young. Normally people would send someone on these kinds of trips who was in his 40s or 50s, who was well experienced, who knows the caravan routes. But Prophet ﷺ was young, he never had any kind of experience in terms of business, but Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha was ready to overlook all of this because of the honesty of Rasulullah ﷺ, and automatically she felt that he worked for my sister, so inshallah this is the kind of person that I can trust, and this is the kind of person that I can send with my caravans. Now this is the thing that we discussed in our last session. Now Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha sent a message to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam through one of her servants, saying that the lady Khadija, now we should remember that at this time Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha was the most well-known lady in Makkah for a number of reasons. Number one, she was the most wealthy woman in Makkah. That's why she was that's why she was famous. She was not the most wealthy person. She was not the most richest person in Makkah, but she was the most richest lady in Makkah, because according to Jahili law, as I said before in the last session, according to Jahili law, it was impossible for women to inherit. It was impossible for them. But in the case of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, her husband died and he did not leave any siblings and any children behind, and he was a rich merchant. So Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha inherited some part of his wealth. And in that manner because of this reason, she became a wealthy woman, and she was the most wealthy woman out of all the women in Makkah. So she was famous. And the other reason she was famous is because she was a single lady. Now in that society, it was really rare for someone, let alone a woman, for someone to be single. And this is something that Islam carried into it. You will hardly find any Sahaba single. they were always married. And this was something that they used to consider a part and parcel of living. That you cannot live a single life. You have to be a married person. So this is something that Islam. But Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, for whatever reasons, she had closed that door. She was not interested in someone. She had been married twice. So probably she is feeling that she is not suitable for someone, or she is not interested in someone. So she had closed that door. Ibn Ishaq rahmatullah alayhi, other historians, they have mentioned that a number of people proposed Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha. They proposed. Because Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha had a noble lineage. She was a pure Qurayshi. And they liked it. And Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha was a rich lady. And according to Jahili law, if you marry Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, automatically her wealth will become yours. And everyone was interested in it. So a lot of people, they proposed Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, but she turned them down. And she was feeling that she is not ready to share anything with anyone, because no one is ready to give her the respect that she deserves. Now Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, she sent a message to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that why don't you take charge of my caravans to Syria. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to his uncle Abu Talib. Now this shows that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a very respectful young man. He didn't just say yes. He didn't just say yes. He got the permission first. There are some young boys sitting here. He got the permission first. Even though he was young, he was independent. Financially, he was independent. He didn't need to take the permission of his uncle, but he took the permission of his uncle. He went to his uncle first. He said, Khadija sent me such and such an offer. What do you think? And his uncle basically, he said that, Khadija is the most well-known lady in Makkah because of her character, because of her wealth. And whatever she is offering you is better than the job that you are doing. He was a shepherd, remember that. He was a shepherd. So he said that whatever she is offering you, it must be better than the job that you are doing. And you're going to get good earning out of it. You're going to get good sustenance out of it. And this is an opportunity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is blessing you with. So never say no to her. Don't say no to her. So Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said yes. And Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha accepted to give 50% of the profits to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. 50%. She would keep 50% and she would give 50% to Rasulullah, and it was a very generous offer. Remember last time we mentioned that if you hire such a person, you won't give him a wage, you give him a profit. That's how we still do it in here today. When you go for a marketing job, you get the profit. Nowadays you get a certain amount of pay as well, but you have certain targets. If you get the target, you get the profit. So Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha offered Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam 50% of the profits, because she felt this is a kind of man, if I give him incentive, he would do well. And then Prophet ﷺ took the caravan. Now remember one thing, Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha sent one of her slaves along with Rasulullah ﷺ on that business trip. His name was Seerah. He's a very important character, so remember, keep his name in your mind, Seerah. Prophet ﷺ took the caravan, and the caravans are going where? Syria. But he took the caravan and he took them to Busra, not Basra of Iraq. There are two very famous cities of Iraq, Basra and Kufa. I'm not talking about Basra and Kufa. I'm talking about Busra, with B-O-S, with the Dhamma on Ba. Busra. There is another city in Turkey, very similar sounding, Bursa. But this is Busra. It was a town outside of Damascus, and almost 100 kilometers outside of Damascus. It's on the way of Damascus, but you haven't reached Damascus yet. And it was on the border of Roman Empire. And this was the place that Arab used to stop there. This was a typical place that Arab used to stop there. Arab would not go to Damascus. Damascus is the main city, by the way, remember that. Arab would not go to Damascus. They would go and stop where? In Busra. Why? Because for example, let me give you a contemporary example. If you're coming to England to do some kind of business, you will go to London. You will go to the border area, to London. You won't try to go all the way inside to Edinburgh. If you're coming to UK, you would go to London, you do your buying and selling, and you will go back. You don't want to go all the way inside because you're already in the country, you're in a good location. Basra is very well known for this reason. It had a huge marketplace, just like you have a huge commercial marketplace in London. Busra used to have a huge marketplace. It was very well known for this reason. Arabs usually used to go there. This was a kind of area, by the way, historically speaking, this was a kind of area. It was on the border of Roman empires. Arab could go there, Yemenis could go there, northern Egyptians could go there, Nabatean, at that time there was a nation called Nabatean, they used to go there, so it used to have a huge marketplace. Historically speaking, from non-Islamic sources, Busra is well known to have been a town of economic transactions. Economic transaction. It was very well known. And to this day, there are ruins in Basra of the marketplace of Busra. Still to this day. They are still standing there, which goes back almost 1500 years. Even before the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just as a side note, I know I'm drifting away, but just as a side note, it's a good information that we should have. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in his khilafat, when he conquered Busra, before he conquered Damascus, on his way to Damascus, he conquered Busra first. He built one of the first masajid ever built in what we know now is Syria. The first ever masjid. And it's still standing there. One of the oldest masajid in existence from its original time is the Mosque of Busra. And it was made even before the Grand Mosque of Umayyah. Do you know the Grand Mosque of Umayyah? Every Muslim should know the Grand Mosque of Umayyah in Syria. Why should we know about the Grand Mosque of Umayyah?
Masjid al-Umayyyin.
What?
Masjid al-Umayyyin.
Yeah. Why? Why should we know about that mosque?
Because that's a place where Isa alayhi salam is going to.
Isa is going to descend on that mosque, on the minaret of that mosque. When Isa will come, he will come in that mosque. It's a very well-known mosque. But this mosque in Busra, it was built way before the mosque of Umayyah. Way before Umayyi Masjid. And this was the mosque built by Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. This again shows that for Muslims, Busra was more important than Damascus. By the way, anyways, let's go back to the story of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took the caravan to Busra. He never went to Damascus and he came back. Maysara, Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, remember, sent one of her slaves along with Rasulullah. Maysara, when he came back, he told Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha about the care and concern of Rasulullah, about the honesty of Rasulullah. He even mentioned that there was a cloud always chasing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, according to some reports, it's not an authentic narration, but it is not strange. If it happened, it happened. But like I said before, we have to be very careful about these things before the prophecy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because if you say such kind of stuff and if you tell it to everyone, then people can ask you this question, that if people had seen such kind of stuff before Prophet became a prophet, then it was quite obvious that this guy is going to become a prophet. Then why didn't they believe in him? When the clear indications were shown, even before he became a prophet, and people had seen those indications, why didn't they believe in him when he became a prophet? So we have to, but at the same time, it is something that has been narrated in earlier books. So if it happened, it happened. Alhamdulillah, it happened. So when he came back, he told Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha about the honesty of Rasulullah. Now Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came back and he made double, triple. The Arabic word that is used here for this thing is adha'af, which means many, many times more than anyone had made profit for Khadija radiallahu ta'ala. He made a lot of profit. And he made it for two reasons. Number one, he was an honest man. And number two, we all believe, and there is no question about that, whatever he does, Allah will bless it. You know, there is no question about that. If you go back when he was an infant, when he was a baby, Halima radiallahu ta'ala anha, herself, her health, her animal, her house, everything was being given barakah. Everything. He entered the house and her animal started giving milk. Her animal became faster, her camel became faster, her she-goat started giving milk. So there is no question about that. Whatever Prophet ﷺ is doing, it's going to have a good barakah in it. So he made a huge profit. He came back, he made a huge profit. Now this increased the emotions of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala. One last minute, then I finish inshallah. It increased the emotions. Now a lot of us, especially when it comes to the people of the mosque or the people who come to the mosque or the religious people, apparently who are religious people, sometimes they feel awkward and they feel hesitant to say this, but there is nothing wrong in saying this, that Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha had emotions for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And because she is a single lady, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is an eligible bachelor, and I always tell my students whenever they come to me and ask me this question, falling in love is not a wrong thing. It's not something that is haram. It's what you do with that love that makes it haram or halal. Falling in love is a natural thing. And by the way, Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, she is feeling these emotions not because of haram things. Not because she had any kind of interactions with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are going out on a date. She is feeling these emotions first of all because she is hearing about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam being praised so highly by her own sister. And then she sees the honesty of Rasulullah. She sees the character of Rasulullah. And then Maysara came back and he is telling things about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam which transpired everything. So there is nothing wrong in her in her having a desire to marry Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And who would not want to marry such a person with such a good character, with such nobility? Who wouldn't want to marry that kind of person? Now the details differed about how the proposal came about. Ulama have a lot of differences about it. But they agreed on one thing about the proposal. Now we have done the business transaction that Khadija had with Rasulullah. Now we're going to talk about the proposal. But there is a huge difference of opinion among the ulama how it came about. But they all agreed on one thing. What is that one thing? Inshallah, this is what we'll discuss in our next session. I will try to keep it small and short so you keep remaining interested in it, you don't fall asleep and you take interest in it. These are all the stories that we need to learn about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People ask questions about it and I hope that you keep coming, you maintain this consistency, and inshallah hopefully these things and these stories will become more and more interesting inshallah. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us understanding. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us united in this and may Allah make us day after all.